Hello friends, it's the Rocky Mountain Crafter here with you today. I'm so glad that you could join me. Here I am making a starry night sky card, and I'm just putting a piece of gray for the moon into my precision press. And this set is called To the Moon, and it is by Altenew. And here, I always have trouble. The sticky part of the packaging always gets stuck on my stamp set. And then when I pull it out, and then when I put it back in, it's real difficult. So I recently learned a new trick, and I'm going to try it here. So you just put a little slice in the top of the stamp set instead. And then you can just pull your stamp set out. And gravity just keeps it in. And it's just easy to slide in and out without worrying about that sticky piece getting stuck. So here I'm just looking at the stamps that come in this set and deciding on the orientation that I might want that moon. And I'm also looking on my phone for inspiration. So here I'm pulling up a close-up of a moon and just really looking at which way the moon goes, which way we view it from Earth. I want this card to look as realistic as possible. And also I've pulled up this beautiful night sky picture, and it's going to also be my inspiration. I'm going to attempt to get my card to look as close to that as possible. So here I'm just taking that moon and I'm putting it down onto the cardstock and picking it up with the precision press. There I am conditioning it with an eraser. So when your stamp sets are brand new, sometimes the ink will pool on them and not stamp nicely. They're kind of blotchy and very sporadic ink and spots. So if you just condition it with an eraser, then that helps to eliminate that problem. So I'm just inking it up in Versamark. And the Versamark is going to give a watermark effect to it. It's going to be there lightly, the color. It's just going to darken the paper. That's all the Versamark is going to do. But I didn't want this accent moon to, like, the background of this to look too bold. I just wanted it to be there, just catching the eye a little bit. So here I'm taking for the bolder print, Twilight ink by Catherine. And again, just putting that onto the moon and picking it up with the precision press and stamping it down twice, just to make sure that I have a nice solid image. And there, I am very happy with that. That moon is looking fantastic. So here I have Simon Says Night Sky dies. And it turns out that this circle that comes with this die set is going to fit this Altenew moon almost exactly. So I was just using what I had on hand here. I do probably have the exact size circle that I need in my circle dies, but I had pulled out all of my night sky elements, and this one just happened to fit. So there, I have this beautiful moon now. That Versamark layer is hard to tell here, but it is there in the background. And here I'm just looking at the photo again for inspiration. So now I have to try to make a blue background, blue starry night background. And just grabbing some alcohol inks by Tim Holtz and Ranger. And I have a piece of scrap packaging here that I'm putting them down onto. If you have a glass mat, you could also use that. I find that the scrap packaging doesn't give a reflection for you guys, so that's why I chose it over a glass mat. I do have a glass mat, and I was actually surprised that the plastic didn't melt here for this step. So I was going very lightly though as well. But what I did find was that it was actually drying up. The alcohol ink was drying up. So here I just moisten it up again with some more alcohol. And that is just pharmacy bought alcohol. And I spread it around again with my heat tool. And I'm just waiting until I get a nice print here on this piece of paper, and it does take me a few times. But in the meantime, while I'm doing this a few times, I'll tell you a cute story. The inspiration behind this card is my daughter. When she was 9 years old, she said, "Mom, I love you to the moon and back times 100. And I said, "I love you to the moon and back times 1,000. And she said, "Times 1,000,000. And I said, "Times infinity." And so in the end, this card is going to say, "I love you to the moon and back," and then have the little infinity symbol at the end of it, like to the power of infinity. And of course, it is a card for her in the end. So she's my inspiration for this card, and I wanted just the night sky just to make it look as real as possible to the moon and back. So that's just the story behind this card. And I'm getting real close here to getting a print that I like. I did have to go back and do it a few times, as I had said, but it's coming very, very nicely here. And I find that if you heat tool it from the front and the back, your paper will stay somewhat straight and not warp as much. As soon as it starts to warp from the front, flip it over and do it from the back. Here I'm just taking a blending brush and some Juniper Mist by Catherine Pooler, which is a dark navy blue, and I'm just putting a very light coat of that navy all around the outside and a little bit in the middle, just to get kind of a smooth color to the whole thing. And then when I'm happy with the outside color, I go back over it with more dark around the edges, just to get that whole night sky feel to it. And then I go in with a palette of metallic paints, and these are just purchased off of Amazon, nothing fancy. If you are doing a lot of night skies or things with metallic paints, I do suggest that you get a little bit bigger of a palette, something that will last a little while. I'm running out of this white here because I use it a lot. And so next time around, I will definitely be investing in bigger set of metallic paints. And here I have my phone open and I'm just looking at the night sky on the phone for inspiration, making sure that I'm not doing it too much with the stars, and then drying them here with the heat tool, checking again to that photo, making sure that it looks realistic. How is it coming along? What step do I need to do now? So now it's on to the clouds. And the clouds are part of that night sky die set by Simon Says Stamp. And I do die cut 2 clouds, but in the end I only use 1. So I'm just showing you here me die cutting 1 cloud, and that's out of my Sizzix Sidekick right on my desktop. I do like the size of this little Sizzix Sidekick. It's just perfect for being on your desktop. And then here I have Nellie's Choice Nature Scene dies, and this is Sky. And these 2 clouds I'm taking and I'm going to run them over to my Big Shot, because my little Sizzix is not big enough to die cut those. Here I have 2 stamp pads. One is white and one is like a glimmer color. Let me just find out what that is. Yeah, it's called Illuminate, and it's by Stampin' Up. Now, I don't know if there's another brand name that has something like this, but I tried the white first and it didn't show. So the Illuminate really showed it, and it also has this metallic or sparkle feel to it. So I was really happy with that. So I just went over the edges of all of the clouds with a small blending brush. And that small blending brush also is by Simon Says Stamp. And then I put adhesive onto the back of those clouds and just some pop dots. I did a shallow, very thin layer of pop dots for the layer that's going to be closest to the moon, and thicker pop dots for the layer that's furthest away from the moon. And right when I'm about ready to stamp it, to lay this whole panel down, I remember I need to put some words on there. So here's my words. I love you to the moon and back. And those words are from that Altenew set, To the Moon. And I'm trying to figure out if I want them centered or right justified. Now remember, my pop dots are on the back of this piece. I have not taken them off. So I'm wondering if I'm even going to get a good image here. So I first take my embossing buddy, my little embossing bag there, and make sure that I lay that down so that my embossing powder doesn't get all over the place. And it turns out that I just pushed real hard and I did get a good image with those words. So then the Wow embossing powder is called White Pearl, and it's not bright white and it's not silver. It's kind of an in-between, and it just, with the pearl on the clouds and the gray of the moon, it just went very nicely. So I'm really happy with that. Now I have to make an infinity sign at the end of here, because again, this is going to be to the power of infinity. So I take an embossing pen by American Crafts, and I'm just practicing the infinity sign here. And when I'm comfortable with it and I think that I can do it without any problems or errors, then I just go through and just do it. And that turned out pretty good. I'm happy with that. So there's that embossing pen by American Crafts. Now I'm just putting it into the same Wow embossing powder, white pearl. And I did have to clean it up a little bit, but just use a small paintbrush just to take off any excess embossing powder on there. And I used my heat tool to melt it. And then I'm ready to take those adhesive pieces off the back and stick that down to my card front. Then I'm going to have to cut off any excess to get this panel to be a size that I'm happy with. And when I go to do that, I do that at first in my small We Are Memory Keepers desktop sized guillotine trimmer, but that doesn't go so well. So what I end up doing is taking it over to my big trimmer and trimming it over there. Here I am putting the moon on, just adhering that down using my ATG gun Advanced Tape Glider by Scotch Tape. And you see me use that a lot in this video. Oh yes. So there was a pop dot in the way and that's why it wouldn't cut, but I took it over to my big trimmer and I had no problem. So there I've got it to a size now and I'm just putting that cloud where I think it would look good or nice. And I'm taking that whole panel and I'm backing it onto a blue color of cardstock that I found that matches real well to the blue in the panel. And it's just going to bring out that blue. It makes the eye bring the blue out. And then I back the whole thing again onto some black cardstock. And that is the finished card. And then I check again compared to the video or the image. How did I do? You know what? I was pretty happy with that. I think that that looks fabulous. So I am the Rocky Mountain Crafter. I thank you guys so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook.com, and YouTube at the Rocky Mountain Crafter. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.